What's up, guys? It's TJ, our men's holistic health coach. Today, we're going to go over episode number 1 of a 3-part series called The Power of the Breath, where we're going to talk about breathing, all the benefits that can have when we breathe, especially through our nose, and all the detrimental effects that we can have when we're not breathing properly through our mouth. And we're going to be going over other practices you can do in these videos or podcasts, depending on which form you're consuming. And we're going to go over different practices that you can do to help you to reach new levels of consciousness, to help you increase self-awareness. And because breathing really does have a lot of power, has a lot of benefits for us when we tap into it, and we can really see what we can do and how we can transform as men to be better for our friends, for our family, for each other, for ourselves. And so I'm really excited to share all this cool stuff with you guys. And there's a lot of great information. Most of the information in these classes came from the book by James Nestor. It's called Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art. And I highly, highly recommend you go check out this book, because this book was it was amazing. I finished it in at least a few weeks, and I was blown away about all the new information I learned. And even as I used other studies to cross-reference things he was saying, because I was just so blown away about the power of your breath and how much it can really do. And I really had no idea until I read that book and until I saw the benefits for myself. And so now I'm going to share that with you. So real briefly, I'll go over my experience with how my breathing changed and how it helped me. And so I was a premature baby about around 3 months, and I had underdeveloped lungs. And so to be here today, to be able to learn how to breathe better and to get over things like allergies and different breathing issues I've had in the past, it's been amazing. It's been very cool to see the benefits of what I'm about to teach you guys. And for me, I used to be a huge mouth breather. I used to mouth breathe all the time, whether I was asleep, whether I was awake. I would have my mouth at least a little open, and that's just how I breathed. That's how I felt comfortable. But slowly and surely, I was able to start breathing through my nose. And it was a slower process for me. I started just nose breathing throughout the day as I walked around. It was a little hard. Every now and then I'd use my mouth. And then I started nose breathing during my exercises, which was definitely difficult. But eventually I got used to it. Now it's weird for me to breathe out of my mouth when I'm exercising. And then I had to get to the point where I was in the nose breathe at night. And I did this with mouth taping, which we will talk about either, I think it's in this episode or the next episode we'll talk about it, but we'll get to it eventually, where we talk about the benefits of mouth taping. So my experience has been gradual over the past few years, and now at the point where I breathe through my nose all the time, obviously unless I'm talking like I am right now. But other than that, I am nose breathing, and there's a ton of benefits, and we're going to get into that. So first off, let's talk about the obvious things. So when you're not mouth breathing, then you're also not drooling. You also have a dry mouth. And this has been so helpful because, of course, you're going to lose so much of your body's water supply just through drooling, whether it's during the day or at night. And it's really helpful to be able to close your mouth and to keep that moisture in. Another great reason to breathe through your nose is the fact that it actually limits the amount of oxygen you get. Now, I don't know if most people know this, but when we hyperventilate, if you've ever had a hyperventilation attack, it's terrible. It's really uncomfortable. But that can actually be caused by having too much oxygen and not enough CO2 in our system. And so we want a balance of CO2 and oxygen in our bodies. I think a lot of people just think oxygen. I need more oxygen, I'm running out. And maybe the case sometimes, but other times there is times when we actually need a little bit more CO2 to balance the oxygen out. And so nose breathing, because of course our nose is smaller than our mouth, then we get less air, but the air is more efficient. So 3 other main benefits of nasal breathing would include the fact that our nose, of course, has nose hairs. And so things are going to get filtered out when stuff goes through our nose. And maybe some good things too. But for the most part, I would say that there's going to be bad things that are going to be blocked up by our nose hairs and going into our lungs. And so nose hairs are very helpful as far as filtering out stuff and maybe potential allergens that could get into our lungs. Secondly, when we breathe through our nose actually humidifies the air going into our lungs. This helps our air to be way more efficient, and we can use it way quicker than if we were mouth breathing with really dry air. And then thirdly, when we nose breathe, it releases a chemical called nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide is what's called a vasodilator, meaning that it opens up our veins and our capillaries, allowing for better blood flow with our lungs. So this is very important. So when we're nose breathing, we're making our air more efficient, and then we're opening up nitric oxide, or we're releasing nitric oxide to help open up those different blood flow systems. And so this is very helpful, especially if you're exercising, to get that blood flow going and to make sure you're getting all the enough oxygen and the right amounts of oxygen that you need. So like I said earlier, it took me a while to get accustomed to nose breathing. It's not something you can just do overnight, especially if you've been a mouth breather your entire life. But after a while, I just got more and more comfortable, and I just preferred using my nose more than my mouth. And it definitely takes time. Make sure, and I want to throw out this disclaimer, if you start nasal breathing, then of course, every now and then you're going to have to use your mouth for different things, whether you're speaking, whether you just really need air, your nose is really stuffed up. There's going to be times when you just need to use your mouth, and that is completely okay. So if you're starting this out, realize you don't have to be so strict on yourself. Just start slowly and work on just pushing yourself until you're more and more comfortable with nose breathing, and you're getting the benefits of nose breathing. So make sure you ease into it just like anything else. Alright, so let's briefly talk on meditation. So I talked about meditation in the last video that I made, but we'll talk about it again. The breath is a great center, something to center on while you're meditating, because your breath is abstract. It's something that you can't easily conceptualize or create a thought about your breath. And so breathing is a great way to center yourself and to get yourself in that great mind space and to reach newer levels of consciousness. And what I would recommend to beginners, and believe me, when I say beginners, I don't mean someone who's just only been doing it for a week. This is something I have to do even after years of meditating, because meditating isn't always the easiest thing, although it's a very simple practice. So what I would recommend is, if you're a beginner in meditation, is as you breathe in through your nose, you're just going to mentally rehearse the word in. As you exhale, you mentally rehearse the word out. And that way, you're able to keep track of your breath and to center in something that is abstract and simple. So that way you can stay centered and that your mind can stay more quiet than if it had a lot of content, a lot of thoughts going through it. So in James Nestor's book, he talks about these incredible feats that people do, just the power of the breath. Some of those feats include free divers who dive up to 300 feet on a single breath. That is nuts to me. And he also talks about someone destroying the E. coli disease in their body just through rhythmic breathing. And so these are things that are just amazing, and they're really foreign to, I'd say, most of the population, because we just don't understand breathing. And we're going to go into the history of how we ended up with some of us even mouth breathing in the first place. And a big observation that James makes with some other scientists in this book is that thousands of years ago, humans had bigger mouths, bigger nostrils, and we had no crooked teeth. So the big question is, how did this happen to us? How did we evolve to this point, or de-evolve, depending on the way you're looking at it? How did our structures and our face change so we ended up mouth breathing more at times? So two theories that James and other scientists look at in this book is, number one, we learn to cook food. And so once you learn to cook food, then food, of course, is not going to be as raw, it's not going to be as hard to chew. And then, of course, the muscles in your jaws are going to become less developed because you just don't need them, because our bodies work on a use it or lose it basis. And, of course, we're going to lose that ability to chew so hard if we don't need to. So when we start cooking food, then of course we don't need our jaw muscles as much anymore. The second theory is that as our brains developed and they got enlarged, then more of the energy that our bodies were using went toward developing brains instead of to our faces, and to keeping our noses bigger or our jaws more developed. So James, the author of the book, was a participant in a study where he only mouth breathed for a certain period of time, and he had his nostrils plugged up. And so that way we're able to see the benefits of nasal breathing compared to mouth breathing. And so when he was a participant in this study, he was monitored day and night, and the results are wild. And so upon the beginning of the study of having his nose plugged up, his heart rate variability shot up. And so your heart rate variability is your ability, of course, for your heart rate to change depending on the situation, which is very helpful, because if we need our heart rate up and we need blood pumping, we need to run, we're going to work out, whatever it is, it's very helpful. And then vice versa, we want our heart rate to be able to be lowered when we're calm, when we're at ease, and to give it a little break, or when we're asleep. So heart rate variability is very, very important here. And in the study, his variability shot up, meaning his heart rate was going to be more at a higher rate at more times. And this is not what we want, because this leads to a more stressed out nervous system. Our nervous system doesn't know exactly what's going on, so it's trying to combat a racing heart. And then with this, our blood pressure can rise. And so his blood pressure rose up dramatically, all the way up to stage 1 hypertension. And this, of course, leads to risks such as stroke or heart attack, which we, of course, do not want. This is all from his nose being plugged up and consistently mouth breathing over, I think it was a few days. Another wild thing that happened here too during the study was James' snoring went from 0% to 4,820% in throughout the time of this study, which is mind blowing. So of course I used to snore when I mouth breathe, but now I don't snore anymore now that I'm nasal breathe, and this is very helpful for me and my wife. So then she can sleep, and I know there's times where I'd wake myself up from my own snoring, and or sleep talking or sleep laughing, and so this is very helpful to be able to just sleep through our nose to give us a better sleep at night as well. So why did James's snoring go up so much? This is because mouth breathing, as James discovers, also changes the structures of our airways. Air pressure decreases as we breathe through our mouth. Then this will cause the tissue in the back of our mouths to become loose, and then it goes inward, leaving us prone to snoring and sleep apnea. And sleep apnea affects a lot of people. I see a lot of people sleep apnea, and then you of course have to wear a CPAP. So nose breathing is going to help you to decrease the risk of you having sleep apnea later in life and then having to use a CPAP, which I'm sure is not very fun or exciting for the people that do have to use one. So sleep apnea, or the inability to sleep as well, is due to those relaxed mouth and those throat muscles. We see that mouth breathing also leads to an increased risk of diabetes, cancer, and ADHD. Nose breathing, of course, is going to do the opposite of this. It's not going to lead to any of that. So nose breathing has amazing benefits just in the sense that it can prevent a lot of other things from happening, diseases or disorders that we don't want if we want optimal health. So like I said earlier, when you're mouth breathing at night or just in general, then of course you might drool. And when you drool, you're going to lose water out of your body. And it is found that we can lose up to 40% of our bodily water when we're mouth breathing. And so this can be detrimental because, of course, we know that dehydration has a lot of negative effects. And if we're going to spend a lot of our night losing all that water, then it's no wonder why we're going to wake up feeling dehydrated, we're going to feel dizzy, we're going to feel all these other different effects, the negative effects of dehydration when we wake up in the morning. So, of course, nose breathing is going to prevent this from happening. So another interesting thing that James mentions in this book is actually closing one nostril and only breathing through the other nostril, and then seeing the benefits of that. This is something I'd heard of, but I've never seen any scientific literature on it, and sure enough, there is. And so I'll include some studies in the link description of whether it's the podcast you're listening to or the video that you're watching here on YouTube, and I'll include that in the description below. And so he talks about how, for example, if we're going to close our right nostril and only breathe to the left, that is going to activate the right side of our brain, the right hemisphere, which, as far as we know, our right hemisphere is responsible for creative thinking, imagination, all those different things, and then our left hemisphere of our brain over here. So if you were to close your left nostril and only breathe through your right nostril, that's activate the left hemisphere, which is for logical reasoning, understanding things, more like math, trying to understand complex systems. That's what our left hemisphere is for. And so that is, to me, that's amazing that we could do that. We could affect that just through breathing through our nose, and depending on which nostril we're going to breathe more through. And then when we close, for example, our right nostril and only breathe through our left nostril, then we activate what is called the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the part of our nervous system that is for relaxation, rest and digest, helps us to be able to sleep better. And this is something that would be very helpful when we want to just to relax. We want to not be stressed by anything. We don't necessarily want to go and do something that could be stressful. We just want to lay on the couch. Maybe we're getting ready for bed. We need to relax in a stressful situation, whatever it is, then that can be helpful to breathe through that left nostril. And then on the other side of things, we can close up our left nostril and breathe through our right nostril, and this will activate the sympathetic nervous system. And so the sympathetic nervous system is great for maybe you're about to exercise, maybe you're about to go on a run, maybe you're about to do something you know is stressful, and you want your heart rate up and all that, you want your body to get into that mode, then that will be very helpful to breathe through your right nostril. And so this is mind-blowing to me that we can access this just through something as simple as closing a single nostril and breathing through the other nostril. And our bodies actually naturally will go through cycles of breathing through the different nostrils in cohesion with these different nervous systems, these different systems within our nervous system to be able to do different things. And so, of course, this is something you can play around with, but you don't necessarily have to do this all day. You don't have to be holding one nostril in all day or having it taped or something so you can be relaxed all day. This is something your body is naturally going to do, but if you want to experiment with it and to help you get into different states, then you can go ahead and do that practice. And this is something yogis have known for a long time. So in yoga, the practice of holding in one nostril, breathing out one nostril, is called nadi shodhana. And so it's something that people have already known for thousands of years, but this is something that's being brought up again so that we can access this to acquire optimal health for our bodies. All right, last but not least for this video, I want to talk about dental health and breathing. And this alone was wild to me as well, because I never had realized all the top-down effects of mouth breathing and how much it would affect our gums and our teeth. So this is something that hopefully your dentist knows about. It's something that would be very helpful for you, especially if you already have bad teeth, or you're trying, maybe you have gingivitis, whatever you got. Maybe this will be helpful for you to know this knowledge. And so he briefly mentions it in his book, and he talks about how, and this is also in a PubMed study that I've included in the link below, is that mouth breathing causes not only wear and fracture of our teeth, but it also causes the lining of our gums and teeth to decay. So of course, this will lead to cavities, as well as making our teeth more sensitive to different temperatures. It can also lead to a narrowing of our jaw. And so again, we're going back to those face structures. Mouth breathing, or at least the way we breathe, is going to affect what our facial structures ends up looking like. So nose breathing is very helpful to help us to decrease the risk of sleep apnea and to keep our airways more better functioning. And here's a quote from the PubMed study that I'm going to include. It says, mouth breathing patients may report of symptoms such as dry lips and mouth, snoring and open mouth while sleeping, chronic sinus and ear infections, colds, chronic bad breath, and swollen red gums that bleed easily. And so, be able to use this book and to use other studies to see that mouth breathing has detrimental effects on our dental health is very helpful for us to realize that breathing has way more an effect that we may have previously thought it was. So again, this is why it's so important for us to be able to look at the way we breathe throughout the day and throughout the night, and to be able to reap the benefits of nasal breathing. So if you guys really like this and you really like this information, you find it helpful, be sure to check out my free email newsletter I send out every Sunday. I don't spam people, I only send out about one email every week. And I have more information on different health things that you can do to benefit yourself. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check out the link. You can sign up for that free email newsletter. It has a lot of potent, helpful information for you guys. All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Go ahead and use the nasal breathing to help you out throughout the day today. I will see you. Have a good one.